Hello, mystery writers. It's Monday and it's Mystery Fix, where we talk about writing mysteries. So today I wanted to talk about staying on track with your mystery, keeping the mystery in your mystery. You just always want your eye on the prize because that's what keeps readers turning pages, and that's what you want. So reading other authors in your genre is a sound practice, and it's not just for emulating story strategy and thinking about things you can use in your mystery, but it's also a caution for what not to do in your story when you start reading a story and it just doesn't work for you for whatever the reason. So you want to stop and take a look at why that story isn't resonating with you, because at this point you are a reader and it's the kind of thing you want to avoid in your stories. So I just finished reading a mystery by an established mystery writer, and as a reader, I was disappointed. So I did the same thing as a writer. I thought about why I was disappointed, and I reviewed the mystery writing elements and discovered the reason. So there was an empathetic, complicated sleuth. That was great. I was really along with this character and liked what he was doing and the situations he found himself in and how he related to his colleagues. And his colleagues too were empathetic, supporting characters. And then we got to the villain, and the villain was just like overdone, and so overdone that I found the villain not believable. It was like, okay, this is a cold-blooded killer, and he kept making all these snarky comments, and I just took away from his menace. So every time the villain appeared and he was snarky and had throwaway lines, it was like it stopped me from the story, and I got all, this guy just isn't believable. And at that point, as a writer, I kept reading. As a reader, I would have stopped. I was like, okay, this book is just not getting me. I read a lot of books and really encourage you to do the same. It really helps your writing. And so I went to the end, and because my interest as a reader was gone. And here are my thoughts about going through this experience. To keep the mystery in the mystery, all the components must move the story forward. And it's challenging to keep the balance. I know we all struggle with that. And so I thought I'd put a list of tips together to help you build your story and keep it on track. Some of these didn't come up in this particular reading, but I just brought them up. So keeping your readers on track with your story and not getting them befuddled in some way. So create distinct names for each of your characters. And I know this sounds silly, but it does confuse readers. Make sure no characters in a story have names that start with the same letter. And this can be really tough to do. And I know, especially for me and my historical novels, it's really hard to find names that aren't like other names in the story. But it's a simple trick, and it keeps your readers from being confused when two characters have the same name, especially as they get farther along in the story and they haven't encountered that character for a while, it's easy to confuse that character with another more main character in the same story. So just a quick tip about names. And then all this work in your character Bible, give each character a distinct personality and make it believable. We're all kind of amateur psychologists at what makes people tick, and that's what we use to create our characters. So, for example, in this story, the villain was like the class bully. But he theoretically in the story was a cold-blooded killer. And so instead of making that villain a menace to the sleuth and to some other characters in this story, it was like he became, for me as a reader, a throwaway character. So make sure that the personality that you create for your characters, especially the main characters, are really on track with how that personality that you have perceived and you were presenting to the readers, to make it as real and on track as possible. So another thing that happened in this particular mystery was, there were some really overly complicated relationships between some of the characters, and they kept like pulling me away from the main story. So I think the easiest way to stay on track with your mystery in your story is to focus on the obstacles to your sleuth rather than overcomplicated plot turnings and character relationships. Readers read mysteries because they like the challenge and they want to solve the mystery, and they're hoping that they can solve the mystery before the sleuth does. That's part of the challenge of creating the puzzle for your readers. And when you start going off into complicated character relationships among the supporting characters, it kind of pulls your reader away from the story, and it's not mysterious. All of a sudden we're learning about character A and character B and character C, and did they or didn't they, and that kind of thing. And it's just much better to focus on the obstacles for your sleuth rather than trying to be clever. Don't befuddle your readers. And your job is to tell the story, not to show how clever you are. We come up with complicated character relationships. And I think this is very, very true for beginning mystery writers. Your point is to tell that story and to keep your readers going. So keep on track with the mystery part of your story. And then plant clues to keep your readers guessing. Readers love trying to outsmart your sleuth and guess the murderer. So work on your clues, work on the obstacles to your sleuth. That's the point of the story. This isn't literary fiction per se. This is a mystery, and you want to stay true to the tropes of the genre. I think the easiest way I can say it is, when in doubt, keep it simple. You're creating a puzzle about your murder, not a puzzle about the story characters. And I think you need to keep that in mind. It's all about the mystery, and there's a big difference. So a disappointed reader will not come back to give you a second chance. That's the reason you want to do all this stuff. They're not going to wait for your next book and see if you did a better job. They're going to say, that's it. This author just doesn't appeal to me. So focus on creating a sleuth your readers like, and make that character deep and empathic. Your sleuth's reaction to other characters has a greater chance of keeping your reader involved than creating complicated interrelationships for other characters. Your readers are following the sleuth, so stay with the sleuth. You're going to keep your readers involved and turning those pages. So, some hints for looking at how other mysteries are created. One very simple way is to take a look at popular mystery TV series, and you'll see that the emphasis is on the sleuth and the sleuth solving the mystery. So make sure your subplots don't overshadow the mystery. It doesn't matter if you're a pantser or organize every scene of your stories. Pantsers may find themselves doing a bit of organization in the rewrite, and planners can eliminate story clutter by creating a storyline and sticking with it. It's easy when you're actually writing, for characters to do and say things that you hadn't thought of when you were doing your overall big planning. And it's tempting to follow those things and make things more complicated, but resist that temptation. Okay, that's just tips for today about keeping it clean, keeping it simple in your mystery. Stay with the mystery. Don't get carried away by character interactions, and make sure that your characters are believable. So in my writing news, I just finalized the narration for the Roman Air audiobook, and I'm totally excited about that. It's just a few days away from release, and I'll let everyone know when that happens. And I'm a planner, and I'm working on the interrelationship of characters in my next story, The Grain Merchant, in the Argolicus Mysteries. And so this reading and all the thoughts I had about it were really pertinent to where I am right now in the stage of creating my story. So I hope these tips help. One more tip for today about your author career and what you're doing is to get together with other writers, especially writers in your genre. So if you're just starting out, I really encourage you to join a local writers group. Tonight I'm going to the local Sisters in Crime meeting, and we get to pick the brains of a police detective. So these are things that these are opportunities for you as a writer to expand your vision. All right, that's it for today, for today's Mystery Fix. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.